Here we are, Marc Maron and Bert Kreischer. And you're sitting there thinking, how does this have anything to do with Joe Rogan? Well, you know me. I found out something, and I want to tell you. This is a big something, and I don't think this video addresses it. I think it's going to address just the drama. But there's something you got to know about this situation that shows you just who Joe is. Joe the manipulator. It shows that Joe is running the show. It shows that Joe is creating rifts between people. He's trying to break people apart. He's trying to make himself feel better about his bad comedy. So stay tuned. I'm going to show you something, and it's not good.
All right, so recently Marc Maron was...
Oh, wait. And before Too Lazy to Try, this is their video. They make videos and I don't. You know, if you wonder why I don't, I do it for a living. I just got done doing like 3 hours of photo shoot. Plus I had to build an insert for a box for a product, you know. So I don't want to edit videos ever. I sit here, turn on my webcam, click record. So if y'all have a problem with that, shit, I don't know. So Too Lazy to Try does make videos. So go subscribe to them, be their friends, like their videos, and comment. There you go. Now, this is their video. Marc Maron addresses Bert Kreischer's problem with him.
It's on Tiger Belly, and he talked about the drama that Joe Rogan kind of started between him and Bert Kreischer that happened earlier this year.
Did you hear that? That Joe Rogan started. Now, when you see the end of this story and you find out the truth of the matter, whether or not you believe Marc Maron, but it does all add up and it does make sense. Go back to the drama Joe started and see, when you find the ending, go back to the drama Joe started. We're starting to build a picture of who Joe really is and his circle. I mean, if this guy, look at Bert's face. That guy looks like he's going to sell you a car or a pool stick. I don't know, but I wouldn't trust him. Here we go.
Year. If you remember, I made a video about it, but basically Marc, he made a TikTok where he was talking about how Netflix has created a cash grab culture with comedians, and he didn't mention any names, but it sounded like he was probably describing Bert, which is what Rogan thought, and he sent this to Bert and told him like, hey, Marc is not your friend, he's talking shit about you.
Remember that this started with Joe Rogan sending this message to Bert, and like, look, Here's a piece of thing to remember. Marc Maron didn't say who it was. In that live stream or whatever on Instagram, he didn't say who it was. Joe Rogan, somebody probably like hashtagged it or said, oh, Bert Kreischer and Joe Rogan went out of his way to tell Bert Kreischer this without evidence. And the question is, why would Joe Rogan do that if he didn't know for sure it was Marc Maron, or if he believed a post where Marc Maron didn't say who it is? You can't just assume anything. It makes an ass out of you and your fucking self. So listen, Joe Rogan went out of his way and started this drama without any clear evidence or without fact knowing what it is. And this is something that I'm just starting to see with Joe Rogan. There's just all these little beefs and dramas, and there's Joe with his little crystal ball, like more like his bank account. You will obey, you will obey, you will obey me. Let's continue on.
So then afterwards, Bert talked about this on a podcast, which I'll play here, but first I'm going to play the clip of Marc's TikTok.
Netflix is creating a cash grab culture for a certain echelon of comics. Incentive to do lazy specials. F it, man. They're giving me what? It's the way the world works now. You can go see guys on their rambling, drunk, pop-up cash grab tour. Thousands of people pay millions of dollars to say, nah, it's okay. You know, it's a few good jokes.
People that were my friends, I've heard them talk shit about me on podcasts or behind my back. Rogan texted me the other day. Some guy was talking shit about me on a podcast, and Rogan texted to me. He goes, yo, he's not your boy. And I was like,
he pays attention to that stuff.
Joe's hyper aware of weird concentric circles. He doesn't care about him. He doesn't care about like people talking shit. He cares about his boys and like, yo, just giving you a heads up. This guy talks shit about me. He sent it to me. And I was like, fuck that guy. And the guy, I'm friends with the guy. I've had him on my podcast 2 times, 3 times. I've been on his podcast twice.
What did he say about you? I'm mad.
He said Netflix has ruined comedy. It's not what it used to be, and now you got these guys doing these arena tours where they're not that funny and they're drunk as fuck on stage, and they should call their tour the that was okay tour. And I was like, first of all,
but he's projecting his own insecurities.
Oh yeah, he's done that his whole career. If I said his name, you'd go, oh, that makes sense. It tracks.
What is it, Ryan?
I'm sorry, Bert Kreischer. If anybody rings true of insecurity, my brother, you shouldn't. And then see, this is the thing. This all started with Joe. No fact, no concrete evidence that it's Bert Kreischer. Just maybe a post or a hashtag on somebody else's repost or whatever. That's it, right? Or he goes and look at Marc Maron's thing and he assumes. So now you have this drama, and notice how Bert just right instantly goes like, fuck this guy, and then tells her he's insecure, and if you knew who it was, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yo, Bert, look in the mirror, my brother. And did you have a conversation with him? Did you ask him if he said these things? Or are you just going off the same clip we just saw where he didn't say who it was? And I'm just kind of like, maybe I don't know. But what kind of fucking pop-up shows does he do? He doesn't do pop-up shows, right? He doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. There's only one person that does that shit. Like the most famous comedian in the world. The guy that could just pop up anywhere. Even popped up in Joe's Club. That's Dave Chappelle. Let's see how this ends.
I'm with.
Yeah, so a lot of people believed he was talking about Bert, myself included, especially because even Bert himself believed that, and Rogan. So I thought there's no question about it. Marc also doesn't seem like the kind of person that would respect Bert's comedy very much. And Bert, I think, has 3 Netflix specials. I believe he's signed on for 2 more. And calling his tour a rambling, drunk, cash grab tour, I think some people would say that describes it pretty well. But apparently Marc, he claims he wasn't actually talking about Bert here. And it does kind of make sense because the one thing that doesn't apply to Bert is the pop-up tour. Like Marc mentioned that. And Bert, I don't think has ever really done pop-up shows. But
I mean, it's just common sense. You know that honestly, if someone did make a cash grab or like just came out of nowhere, it would be Dave Chappelle. He came in. Where's Dave Chappelle now? Dave Chappelle's gone, dog. He made like 60 mil or whatever, dipped out, popped up in a few clubs to promote his special. I mean, I've been wondering where Dave Chappelle is at. I love listening to Dave Chappelle, but I was asking somebody the other day, like, where the fuck does Chappelle go, man? I know he built his own comedy club or he just disappeared. It's crazy, man. I don't blame him. Shit, I'd get out the spotlight too. But yeah, it's just common sense. And who is behind all of this? Joe. Joe seems to be behind a lot of fucking shit stirring, man.
But somebody who is known for that and who Marc claims he's actually talking about is Dave Chappelle, which does kind of add up because, Dave, I think, has probably one of the biggest Netflix contracts as a comedian. And he's also known to be a drinker. And when Marc posted this TikTok, he said Bert was mad at him afterwards, and Marc sounded all confused as to why. So it sounded like maybe he really didn't have Bert in mind when he's talking about this, even though, again, a lot of it can be applied to Bert.
I think Bert Kreischers.
But here's the thing, though. If you called Bert Kreischer's tour a drunk rambling tour, is that even an insult? Like, we all know Bert isn't funny, and the only thing he has is his fans and the Machine story and taking his shirt off. Like, for me, that's just like some caveman shit, and I don't find it funny. But his fans do. And to say that his tour, like, Bert Kreischer's an alcoholic. Who doesn't know that? Is it an insult to say your tour's a drunk tour? No. Why would you even be offended? You are a drunk tour. Shit. It's whack. It's whack that Joe Rogan started all of this. Man, I'm so disappointed, man.
Mad at me. I don't know. Did I say something about Bert Kreischer? I saw him last night. He seemed mad at me. I guess I could text him. It's weird. I'm getting older, and sometimes, I say shit again. For years, I was very careful about saying shit, and I might have said a little something. All it takes is a little something.
So then last week on Tiger Belly, Marc talked about it again and clarified that he wasn't actually talking about Bert.
Bert got mad at me, and it was like it made me very upset.
Is he
because it got out of hand? Huh?
still mad?
Well, it wasn't about a real thing. Like, I was on an Instagram Live, just doing a thing, and I was rambling on,
like I do. And I was talking about Netflix. And basically what I said was that Netflix has created this cash grab culture where a certain echelon of comics can just do, pop-up shows shit-faced and make millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And I wasn't talking about Bert.
Right.
Do you know who I was talking about?
Andrew.
No.
Who?
Chappelle. So I was talking,
Dave Chappelle. Yeah.
and it's not an unknown thing.
Yeah.
He does a
It
pop-up
was unknown
show.
to me, but
Yeah. But I decided just to be diplomatic and not mention names.
Yeah,
and then somebody on fucking Instagram was like, talking about Kreischer.
I'm really, I think something interesting, just to give you a heads up on how I do YouTube things. I tend to find topics that really interest me. And as I dig deeper and deeper, I just keep investigating until I find out the fuck what I want to find out. Right now, that happens to be Joe Rogan. And it's nuts, but I will create a very attractive path all the way through this to where you could learn a lot, because I'm learning a lot. So that means we got to be learning something. If a fucking no one wants to get canceled, guy like me, a dumb guy like me, oh boy, you guys would have fucking like clipped that. Woo, woo. I'm just playing. That was planned just to wake you up in this film. No, I'm just joking. Here we go.
oh, that's how it started.
And then it picked up some traction in that world. I don't even know any of this is going on.
Yeah.
And
I didn't-
on TikTok.
Yeah, you saw it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had no idea any of this is going on.
Wow.
And then I'm flipping through the stuff, and I saw Bert at the Comedy Store, before I knew anything, and he was like so shut down and weird. I'm like, what's going on? You good? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why, Bert? You never see Bert like that.
Yeah.
And then I'm scrolling and I see him on a podcast saying like, there's this guy who we were friends. If he's been on my show,
I saw that.
I've been on his show,
Yeah.
and he said some shit. And Rogan got in my ear and said he's not your boy and all
Yeah.
this, and his name rhymes with, and I'm like, oh my god.
And I just think it's hilarious that Rogan's the one who's stirring the pot here, because usually he acts like he's above drama and he tells all his friends not to read comments and not pay attention to what people are saying about them. But with this, he sent Bert that clip, and apparently Marc wasn't even talking about him, which is kind of embarrassing because that means Rogan listened to that TikTok and heard Marc describe Netflix cash grab culture and drunk rambling tours, and the first person that came to mind is Bert Kreischer. But also Marc did say that somebody took his TikTok and reposted it and put Bert as a hashtag. So I guess maybe Rogan saw the hashtag and thought that was Marc's original TikTok or something. I don't know, but I just think it's funny that Rogan heard all that and is like, oh, he's definitely talking about Bert here.
He did make the point
enough to send it to him and tell him, like, dude, he's talking about you.
Yep.
He's not your friend.
Yep.
So the fact that Marc wasn't even talking about Bert there kind of makes Rogan look bad now, because
Rogan's
he
the
just
pot
heard all
stirrer.
that and assumed he was describing Bert's comedy, which obviously he wasn't the only one. A lot of people thought that, but it's just funny coming from Bert's friend. Because if Bert had stumbled upon that TikTok on his own, he probably would have convinced himself that Marc wasn't talking about him, which, I mean, he would have been right. But the fact that Rogan sent it to him and said, hey, he's talking about you, his opinion carries the most weight, obviously, so Bert's going to take his word for it.
This happened, yeah.
Right. So then I'm like, this is crazy. And so I call Bert.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I wasn't talking about you.
Wow.
I said, you don't do pop-up shows.
Yeah.
I was talking about Dave. And
Yeah.
Bert's like, well, that tracks. I'm like, well, great. So now what do we do? How do
Right.
we
He
put
made
this
the whole
back?
thing. Yeah, he made a whole thing. out of
And,
it.
it was, and ultimately it doesn't really matter. I don't live in that world. But
you
it was
do. You
just-
do.
But it was just so upsetting.
Yeah.
that somebody had clipped it
Yeah.
for TikTok.
For TikTok.
And then re-hashtagged it.
Wow. Wow.
And Bert's like, well, I saw the tag, and I'm like, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Kid. I'm gonna clip that and then
Yeah,
hashtag it. Bert Kreischer isn't funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
I
just
was
like-
the audience for that, though, because I was like, oh, this is great.
I had no
But I
idea
did-
what's going on.
Yeah. But it is fun. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, but it's just like it put.
Yeah.
It sucks for the friendship.
Yeah. But it's fun
It's
to
just
watch.
and Rogan had bought it as well. He thought,
yeah.
but I really wasn't talking about him.
Yeah.
And like I said, I definitely believed he was talking about Bert, because also I found out about this once Bert talked about it on that podcast. So if Bert himself believed it and Rogan believed it, I thought, all right, he's definitely talking about him. But now hearing Marc explain it, it does make sense that he's talking about Dave. even though I'm sure some people probably believe that Marc's just kind of backtracking because he feels bad now that Bert's upset or something. But let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments, and make sure you check out my Patreon account if you want access to over 90 exclusive videos from me. And you can hear about Michael Richards, Kramer's infamous meltdown at the Laugh Factory. That's a classic that people really like. And there's just a ton of other stuff. There's a lot to go through. If you're a fan of the channel, I highly recommend it. I'll put a link in the description.
There you go. Go subscribe.
Right, recently Marc
Oh, sorry.
was on-
I just have to say, man, this is about Joe Rogan, and it's just kind of messed up. It's just really kind of messed up. And if Joe Rogan says he's not your boy based off of those little comments, how about all the fucking shit talking, calling him an alcoholic to like every other guest that comes on, talking about how fat Bert Kreischer is, how much he needs help, all the things you say about him on your podcast, it doesn't make sense, man. Something does not make sense about this group. It just seems so off. For friends, they sure do trash each other a lot. But then again, I guess, watch a reality show or something, or just look at your life and friends fight with each other. But I just don't understand why you would do this in front of millions and millions of people watching. Why would Joe Rogan try and put a rift between Marc Maron and Bert? I don't know, but we'll just continue searching on. In the next video, goodbye.